Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Action Network podcast. My name is Michael Leboff. I am the hockey editor here at Action, and joining me today for a special midseason NHL betting episode is my friend Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports, and you probably know him from Hockey Twitter. And Pete, we are 2/3 of the way through the NHL season. The trade deadline is less than 3 weeks away. So now is as good a time as any to take a look at where things stand in the betting market in the NHL. And we'll start with Stanley Cup odds. The Colorado Avalanche, they're still your clear favorite. They're 4-1. Tampa Bay 5-1. The Florida Panthers, they're 8-1. Toronto Maple Leafs hanging out there at 10-1. The Vegas Golden Knights also 10-1. Carolina Hurricanes 12-1. The Calgary Flames, God love them, 14-1. The Pittsburgh Penguins 16-1. The Minnesota Wild 19-1. Your Boston Bruins 22-1. The New York Rangers, they're a fraud, but they're at 22-1. The St. Louis Blues 25-1. Edmonton Oilers under Jake Woodcroft now 30-1. Washington Capitals, they're plummeting fast. They're 30-1. The Nashville Predators 45-1. Dallas Stars 50-1. The surprising LA Kings, they're 60-1. Winnipeg Jets, they're 70-1. The Anaheim Ducks, they've shortened to 80-1 off of a decent first half, but they've kind of floundered of late. The New York Islanders, the worst team in the world, they're 100-1. The Canucks are 200-1, and the San Jose Sharks are 400-1. We'll cut it there because nobody else really has a chance. Of those names and numbers, which one kind of jumps off the board to you?
I think the Minnesota Wild at 19-1. I really like that. I mean, their goaltending could use some help as of late, and I feel like that could, it depends. It obviously, heading into the trade deadline, things could shift and the outlook could shift. But I think numbers wise and value wise, I think the Wild are a very good team, and they've got a strong top six. They play, for the first time in a long time, they've been playing an exciting brand of hockey, and they've been finding success. And, that Western Conference behind Colorado is pretty wide open. And I think that the Wild are a team that proved last year that they can, they may not be as impressive on paper as a lot of these teams, but they can hang with them in a 7-game series. They gave Vegas a pretty good run last year. So I think the Wild are a team that I would not sleep on. They haven't been playing super well since the All-Star break, but a deep team, a team that's pretty strong up top, and I think that they're a team that can hang in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and a reason I wanted to record this before the trade deadline is that there are going to be teams that, let's say the Wild go out and they get a goaltender, they get Marc-Andre Fleury, they get Semyon Varlamov or whatever, their number is going to shorten because that is their fatal flaw right now is their goaltending. And like you said, they've struggled lately, 1-6 in their last 7. So this number could keep drifting on them. And I think if you're looking to buy a team to hang with Colorado in that division and maybe pull the upset, the Wild are probably the only one with value. St. Louis is shortened too much since we saw them at the start of the season. For me, I like the Boston Bruins, 22-1. And the reason I like Boston is, first, we know that GM Don Sweeney loves himself to take he loves a swing at the deadline. Taylor Hall, Rick Nash. I mean, the list goes on and on with the big names that the Bruins have gotten after at the trade deadline. They have room to do it. They could use maybe someone like Claude Giroux from Philadelphia. I think he would also be open to that idea as well. And if they do make that splash, this number should shorten too. They're 22-1 right now. That number drifted from where they were at the start of the preseason. The Atlantic Division, Tampa Bay, Florida, Toronto, Boston, that's a gauntlet. But when you think about the way these 4 teams play, Boston's number 1 in expected goals against this year. They're number 1 in preventing high danger scoring chances. They're second at shot suppression. So this is an incredibly good defensive team. The problem has been with them this season, scoring and inconsistent goaltending, but they got that sorted out with the way Jeremy Swayman's been playing. So if Boston can add a secondary scorer at the trade deadline, I think that they are within a shot of getting out of the Eastern Conference, because I think they match up pretty well against teams like Florida and Toronto, who play wide open styles of hockey. Those kind of that tempo doesn't really translate well in the NHL playoffs. So yeah, I think the Bruins are worth a sprinkle here, 22-1. I don't see this number getting any longer. I think they might be out at 25-1 at FanDuel, but if you can find them 20-1 or longer, this is probably going to be the high water mark for Boston.
Yeah, and like I hear all the things you're saying, and I do agree with them, and I think that like you mentioned Don Sweeney and his willingness to take shots at the deadline. I think that that's probably going to be amplified a bit this year because as somebody who's from Boston, very close to the Bruins, the temperature on Don Sweeney right now is pretty cold coming off of the offseason that he had, and the public opinion of him is not super hot, and this team's window is definitely closing. The Patrice Bergeron status is up in the air beyond this year. And I mean, there's some PTSD with David Krejci and what happened with him last year. So it's like, and now Tuukka Rask also retired. So like we're starting to see the pieces of this core that have been in place for a long time start to drop off. And, if Don Sweeney doesn't take a swing and this team falls short as one and done in the playoffs or something, like that could be his job. He could be out of a job this summer if things don't go well down the stretch. So, I think that the desperation factor might be there. He's already kind of mentioned that, they're probably going to do something significant at the deadline. So again, I hear what you're saying. Just for me, I look at that division. I look at the Eastern Conference. It's tough, man. Like you got Carolina, you got, I mean, even in the division, you have Tampa, you have Florida, and you say what you want about Toronto, but like the way that the Bruins have played this year is so inconsistent that like I'm not totally confident that they're going to sneak into the top three within the division. Then outside of the division, you have Carolina. Like I know that they don't necessarily aren't like a super fearsome playoff matchup, but I think the Bruins are like pretty mediocre this year in terms of what they've delivered consistently from an on ice perspective. So not crazy about it, but I do get what you're saying from an odds perspective.
Yeah, it's just not going to get higher than this year. And like you said, this is it, last rodeo for Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak core, in all likelihood. And I trust Jeremy Swayman. I've watched him since Tuukka Rask retired again. He has been fabulous, and I don't see anything in his game that scares me from him not being able to translate to a best of seven. And like you said, Sweeney, if he lands Claude Giroux and that second line gets bolstered, you're talking about Taylor Hall and Claude Giroux on a second line for a team that already has Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Pasternak. There's something to be said about this team. But yeah, the on ice results, especially through like the first 3.5 months of the season for the Bruins, have been pedestrian, which is why you're getting a decent chance to buy in on them right now. And I think it's funny when you talk about from my perspective, I don't have really any emotional attachment to the team, but you do. And it's a good sounding board when you're betting, right? To talk to a fan, because generally, unless you're, crazy, I guess Patriots fan or whatever, like people are going to point out the flaws that they see in their own team and tell you not to do it. But I'm not listening to you.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. Like you should ask, people close to the team, and their outlook seems to be more, for the most part, more dark than like somebody who's playing the board, because when you're playing the board, you see the value. But when you're talking to a fan, you're like, well, I see the flaws, the deep flaws in this team, and I'm telling you not to buy in.
That's a beautiful thing about betting. Just a beautiful thing. All right, we'll move on to some awards markets here. The Hart Trophy given out to the MVP. It's going to be an interesting race. Coming into the year, everyone just assumed it would be a coronation for Connor McDavid. He's still the favorite, 2-1, but he's got a lot of company at the top. Austin Matthews is the second favorite at plus 380. Then it's Alex Ovechkin, who's plus 550. Leon Draisaitl, McDavid's running mate, 7-1. Igor Shesterkin of the Rangers is 8-1. Jonathan Huberdeau is 8-1. Then you get to some long shots. Kirill Kaprizov is 25-1. Chris Kreider is 25-1. Mikko Rantanen, 35-1. Alex Barkov, 35-1. Nathan McKinnon of the Avalanche is 35-1. And Cale Makar is 50-1. Kyle Connor also 50-1, but I think we can probably cut it there. This is a frustrating one because I think that there are a couple guys who I'd want to play, but the numbers have shortened a lot. Like I think Huberdeau is interesting. He could end up as the points leader for the season if he keeps up his pace. Igor, he was like 60-1 3 weeks ago at some places, so you missed the boat there. But I think he's going to get a lot of publicity as the season winds down and hockey writers start to talk about, is it going to be the first goaltender to win the Hart since Carey Price almost a decade ago. If you wanted to take a shot on a long shot, I think Cale Makar is like maybe a little interesting if he has a really, really strong last 35 games or so, and the way he plays, he's probably going to run away with the Norris Trophy as top defenseman. He might get onto ballots, but at this point, I think it's Matthews or McDavid, and the numbers are too short for me to get involved.
Yeah, I don't feel super strongly anywhere here. I mean, Huberdeau is the one that I kind of would be most intrigued with from a value perspective. And even then, it's not crazy. Ovechkin, I wouldn't touch based off of what's happening with Washington. I mean, like Ovechkin's having an incredible year, and I think like from a narrative perspective, there's a lot of intrigue there. It's just like, oh, how is he this good and this late in his career? And there's the chase, and he's got that on his side. But like with the way Washington is trending, would not touch that right now. And then, Igor, like you said, you missed the boat on that. Like you should have played that. Before the All-Star break, you saw how this was going, and I think it's pretty much postmarked that Igor is essentially the Rangers at this point, and so his name will get thrown in there, but I don't see him winning it. It's got to be if Edmonton gets into the playoffs, which I expect them to, it's Connor's going to be at the top based off of the production and just kind of carrying that team a little bit, but I don't feel super strongly about McDavid or Matthews either way. And after that, I've kind of like, I've resigned myself to just assuming that one of those two is going to win.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think with this market too, you can just wait and see if anything drifts, or, if somebody maybe pokes their head up like Makar, for example. But yeah, I think of all the awards, the Hart and the Vezina are the two that I really don't think have much betting intrigue to them, but this one I think has a lot, and that's the Jack Adams, which is given to the Coach of the Year. Right now, my man Daryl Sutter, bet him before the season, 50-1. He's the favorite, plus 330 for the Calgary Flames. Gerard Gallant, he's plus 450. Andrew Burnett, he's 7-1 for the Florida Panthers. Jared Bednar of the Avalanche, he's plus 750. John Cooper's 8-1 for the Lightning. Rod Brendamore's 8-1 for the Hurricanes. Mike Sullivan, he's 10-1 for the Penguins. Sheldon Key, for some reason, is high up on the list at 15-1. Dean Evison of the Wild, a team you like, for the Cup, he's 16-1. Tom McClellan of the Kings is 20-1. John Hines of the Predators, 20-1. Craig Berube of the St. Louis Blues is also 20-1. We'll cut it there because I don't think all that many coaches are interesting, except for one other guy who I want to talk about, and that's Bruce Boudreau. He's 60-1. The Vancouver Canucks are roughly 4-1 to make the playoffs right now. If they get in, he's getting on the ballot. He took over for this team when they're 8-15-2 in December, and if he gets them into the postseason after that start, Bruce Boudreau is going to get a ton of votes. And whether that's enough for him to take over Sutter, if the Flames keep this up, remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be Sutter, probably Mike Sullivan, and Boudreau. Those would be my three guesses for the ballot right now. With maybe if Colorado just completes storms, like Jared Bednar will get on there. But yeah, if you're going to make a bet right now and you're looking for a fun one, I think it's Boudreau.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like a guy who clearly understands how the voting works for this. It's like the most surprising coach rather than the necessarily like the best coach. And so, when I look at surprising, I would throw Burnett in there because, obviously the circumstances not ideal for him to get that job, and he's done great replacing Coach Q, and that team hasn't really missed much of a beat since taking over, and so he's in there for me. Sutter, I think that a lot of people underestimated what the Flames were capable of heading into the season, and obviously they've done super well as of late, and the odds reflect that. I think that my safest bet would be Burnett based off of the season-long sample so far. But I do think that you're right. I mean, if you're going for straight up value, Boudreau at 60-1 is a very smart bet because, you look at, where that team was when he took over, and even the possibility of them being a playoff team right now is like, well, even if they finished on like the wrong side of the bubble, it's like maybe he should still get some consideration based off of how low the stonks were on the Vancouver Canucks once that change happened.
Yeah, and he's an affable guy. The media loves him. He's got a great quote. He's bigger than Christmas basically right now in the NHL, and like I think he's just someone that is fun to back, which is what this award's all about. It's about the story and, like you said, the surprise coach, and that's what the hockey writers who are going to be writing are going to be voting for.
Right, and on that note, like, why not throw Marty St. Louis into the mix at this point too? I mean, the Canadians had eight wins when he took over at the beginning of this month, or at the beginning of February, and now that I believe that they had won 5 in a row before losing. Like, if you can almost have a winning streak that matched the team win total or came within a striking distance of the team win total when you took over, I'm sort of joking here. I don't expect Marty St. Louis to be in the Jack Adams discussion, but
he'll get a vote. You'll get like one of those.
He'll get some vote,
like
yes.
A stray vote from probably like Pierre
Yes.
LeBrun or something like that. So someone would just throw him the one like third place vote.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the odds listed there, but it would be very funny to see what that would be listed at this point in time.
Yeah, the only other one who I think is like, if you really are just going to have a laugh and are rooting for some chaos and the Capitals do fall out, they just completely implode. Brad Larson is 500-1 into the Blue Jackets get into the playoffs. Oh boy, he could at least get his name mentioned and get some tongues wagging on, whether it's some of these mainstream hockey podcasts like 32 Thoughts or whatever, but I'm not telling you to go out there and bet Brad Larson to win the Jack Adams unless he wins. Then I did. All right, let's move on to the Vezina. This one's a little more straightforward. You're basically betting, will Igor Shesterkin stay healthy? Will he continue to play, to half the form that he's been playing this season? Because that will still be good enough to get this done. He's minus 150. Jacob Markstrom's the second choice at 6-1. Andre Vasilevsky's plus 850. Juuse Saros is 14-1. Jack Campbell, for some reason, is still 20-1. Sergei Bobrovsky, 25-1. Tristan Jarry is 40-1. John Gibson's 40-1. Darcy Kemper is 45-1. So is Connor Hellebuck. And then Thatcher Demko, 60-1. If Igor plays out the season and like nothing unforeseen comes to him, he's going to win. But if we're here to try to help you, give you some action down, and I think that if you're betting the Bruce Boudreau narrative of can the Canucks get to the playoffs, you can also throw Thatcher Demko and basically apply the same logic to him. If Demko can will this team to the playoffs, he's gonna get some Vezina love. He's 60-1 right now, and you're basically parlaying a lot of things to happen for Demko to win. One, Shesterkin either doesn't stay healthy, or he just completely craters. 2, Canucks get to the playoffs, and 3, Markstrom, Vasilevsky, and Saros have pedestrian second halves. But is that enough for 60-1? I don't know. If you're looking for one, that would be the one I would suggest. But other than that, it's Igor or bust.
Yeah, it's essentially Igor or bust, and I threw some money on UC Saros at the beginning of the year, and I still don't think that's like out of the question, especially, a guy can get injured down the stretch, and, not wishing that on Igor, but like things happen. And so, I still feel okay about UC Saros based on the way things have gone this year. Like, especially if Nashville gets in, and it's like, we all kind of know that that's a big reason why it would happen. But I'll tell you, like, if you had told me before the season that at this juncture that Tristan Jarry would have better odds than like Connor Hellebuck, I'd be like, what happened to Connor Hellebuck? Was there an accident of some sort? But Tristan Jarry has had a great bounce back campaign. What about Ville Husso in St. Louis? I mean, we saw. I think that it's unlikely, but I mean, we saw what Jordan Binnington meant to the Blues team taking over midseason a couple of years ago. Now the same thing seems to be happening to Jordan Binnington with Ville Husso in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's funny. His name hasn't like popped up on odds basically at most places. but I've been keeping an eye out for him. He's been fantastic and would be like another guy worth a look. I think between like Uso and Saros too, like they shouldn't be near the favorites, but they should also be on the odds board for the Hart Trophy. Like Saros is the MVP for the Nashville Predators, and when you're looking at like the pure meaning of the award, the most valuable player to his team, Saros is in that conversation. But it's hard to find odds on him, and because these markets just they fall by the wayside. Hockey's already a niche sport, and these are niche markets, and bookmakers kind of just don't really pay attention all that much, except to the very top. Or if less some money comes in. But if you can find Uso out there in the same kind of range as Demko, I don't hate it, because it's once again, you're parlaying a couple things basically, and you're saying is the 60-1, is that what the parlay odds are? And another thing, keep in mind, like I was joking a little bit about Jack Campbell. He's 20-1. He was neck and neck with Igor at the top of the board for the entire first half of the season. And he's been the worst goaltender by goals saved above expected in the NHL since Christmas or thereabouts. So these drop-offs in form, they do happen, and they can happen pretty like violently with goaltending, with such a volatile position. Sergei Bobrovsky's struggling right now. So it doesn't look like that'll ever happen with Igor. Somehow the Rangers have fallen backwards into another outstanding goaltender. It's driving me nuts. But it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. And I also want to mention too with Igor, don't bet on Gerard Gallant to win the Jack Adams, because I think everybody knows what's going on with the Rangers, right? Like this is all
not a coaching thing.
Right.
This is not a coaching thing.
So the fact that he's the second favorite, I get why he's there, because the Rangers came into the season as an outsider, and it's his first season, and he's coaching in New York and whatever.
And I do think he's a good coach, but he's not the reason that this team is overperforming.
Exactly. And I don't think that because of the way Igor's played, it's been so outstanding and well noted. I don't think Gallant will get there, which is why I think when I was talking about Jack Adams, you can basically skip over Gallant if you are looking to make a bet there. But yeah, for the Vezina, it's, if you want to lay the wood with Igor, I'm not going to judge you for it. But at this point, you've certainly lost basically every bit of value. All right, with that, let's move on to the Calder Trophy. I think this race is actually more wide open than people think. Moritz Seider for the Red Wings, the defenseman, he's plus 225. As the favorite, Trevor Zegras is plus 275 of the Anaheim Ducks. Lucas Raymond, Seider's teammate in Detroit, he's 3-1. Michael Bunting, 26 or 27-year-old rookie for the Maple Leafs, he's plus 450. Anton Lundell of the Florida Panthers is 12-1. Then you got Jeremy Swayman, 16-1. Tanner Jeannot of the Predators, 20-1. And Matthew Boldy of the Wild, 25-1. Probably cut it there. Okay. I don't think that this award, I feel like everyone thinks that Trevor Zegras is going to win this award because of the hype surrounding him. He's had a great season for the Ducks. No getting around that. He scored a last-second game winner against the Bruins last night. He had that Michigan style goal thing with Sonny Milano earlier in the year. People were loving what he was doing at the skills competition in the All-Star game. He's a lot of fun to watch to the casual fan that everyone's always talking about that's out there. It's the hypothetical casual fan of the NHL. But I do think that Jeremy Swayman, who I bet before the season at 25-1, he's still out there 25-1 at some places. I think he's absolutely worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be my number one there. I mean, especially based off of the way that he's played. Obviously took a bit of a dive in terms of outlook when Rask came back and he was the guy that was sort of the odd man out, but obviously that path has been cleared and he's been outstanding since then. And I mean, we talked about the Bruins and their outlook heading forward. And like, if the Bruins have a strong second half of the year and, they improve at the deadline and things go super well down the stretch and Jeremy Swayman keeps playing this well, that's going to get a ton of recognition. And Zegras has the name brand power. Say what you want about that and like voter tendencies, but I think Swayman is absolutely worth a shot. And I would say the same about Matt Boldy in Minnesota too, because Matt Boldy has been unbelievable. And, since coming on the scene and you can obviously make the case that he's going to be hurt by how late he sort of joined the squad. But at this point, he's making up for lost time and the numbers are great. He's been He's passed the eye test. He's certainly drawn a ton of attention. And again, I think that Minnesota is going to be a strong team down the stretch, and Boldy's probably going to be a big factor in part of that. So definitely worth a shot at 25-1 there, I think.
Yeah, I think Boldy is interesting. He's got 18 points in 20 games. He's going to play another 20. If he ends up around that 40-point mark or comes close to 20 goals, he's definitely going to at least be talked about for the award. And the thing with Swayman that I like right now is that his competition for playing time is Linus Ullmark, who has been, I guess if I'm being kind to him, inconsistent. He's not been good for the Bruins. Yeah, he's not been good for the Bruins this season. But Swayman has been outstanding. 3 shutouts. If you look at his surface level stats, like a .930 save percentage, his underlying metrics, the goal saved above expected. He's when you kind of prorate that out to 60 per 60 minutes, he's 3rd or 4th in the NHL. Like he could play himself into like a Vezina conversation as well. He's playing that well right now. And the question always was playing time with him. Will he get enough starts? I think he's going to if he stays healthy. And if the Bruins continue to play the way they're playing right now, I think won 5 of 6 at the time of recording. Swayman and they can maybe even stay in touch with Toronto or whoever for that third seed in the Atlantic. Swayman, is going to get some votes. And then you're also looking at it from a game theory perspective with Seider and Raymond. They'll probably split votes because they're on the same team. All of a sudden that opens a door for maybe a third man in, and that could be Swayman. So I think Swayman, Boldy are the 2 guys to go for. I know Tanner Jeannot was catching some hype earlier in the season. He might score 25 goals, and if you think that he can get to that mark, he might get on a ballot if the other guys slow down. But like it's Swayman, Boldy, Jeannot for me in this market. But I think that this one and Jack Adams are both worth getting into and taking a shot on some of the guys we've been mentioning. All right. I mean, with that basically wraps it up. The NHL season. We're heading towards the trade deadline. Big names out there. Claude Giroux is probably the biggest fish. I think you could see some goaltending moves. But like I said at the top, like if you're going to make a bet on a team that you think is going to make a splash, make sure to do it before, because the market tends to overreact to trades like that. And on that note, we will wrap it up. This has been the Action Network podcast. For Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports, I'm Michael Leboff. We'll probably see you on this feed right before the playoffs start. But also I want to remind you that you can listen to our NHL betting show. We call it Line Change every Tuesday and Thursday morning. That's with me and So Many Sports of Gambling Twitter. We break down those nights' slates, and we'll probably expand that coverage for the playoffs. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you for listening, and we'll hand you back over to the March Madness crew or whoever else runs this feed at this time of year.